and bleeding profusely. Someone had come to fetch me, and I'd done what I could, setting a broken bone in the lad's father's right hand and, after patching up a long cut on the farmer's palm, informing him that the best thing to do for his splattered nose was to keep applying cold compresses and hope that when the swelling went down, he'd be able to breathe through it again. It wasn't that unusual for fights to break out, but this had been a savage one. And what troubled me was that it had been, really, over nothing. I wasn't sure what the lads had excavated from the bank. The farmer had grabbed back whatever it was and hidden it before anyone else could see. But I was quite sure it wasn't valuable, and most certainly not precious jewels. And now we were suffering the aftermath, with deep, angry resentment between the farmer and the village. Almost all the villagers sided with the lads and their father, and no opportunity missed for one side to have a snipe at the other. Other than a few servants and farmhands whose loyalty probably owed more to fear than any appreciation of their master's finer qualities, the farmer lived alone, but, big, loud, red-faced and choleric man that he was, he could shout and bluster enough for half a dozen. Moreover, he had made good his threat of letting loose his dogs, and now the boundaries of his land were guarded by two huge mastiff-like animals who were terrorizing everyone going about their business on the track that ran alongside the farmer's land. The villagers had asked me to have a word with the farmer, and I'd tried. His nose was still spread across the lower half of his face, however, and just now he wasn't listening to reason. I'd been going to ask Jonathan Carew, vicar of St Luke's, Tavy St Luke's, to try. But there was something the matter with Jonathan. That was the second event. Only the previous Sunday, the one after the fight, the vicar had had some sort of attack, for want of a better word, in the midst of his sermon. Come to think of it, attack isn't the right word, for it implies violence, and there was nothing violent or even dramatic about what happened. And it's possible that those placed further back in the church observed nothing. Celia and I, however, were near the front, and both of us saw Jonathan go pale suddenly and clutch at the sides of the lectern, hands white-knuckled, appearing to forget what he was saying and simply stand there, staring out blankly over the heads of his congregation. It was as if he had suddenly seen a horrible vision, as if something had reminded him of some awful memory he was trying not to think about, or, as my sister said with a touch of the macabre, and not entirely in jest, as if he'd seen a phantom. He was quick to recover himself, however, and, after a couple of false starts, resumed his sermon. Afterwards I heard one or two remarks. Vicar had the hiccups, I reckon, and lost his train of thought he did, and I thought we were going to get away with a short one this week. But overall, it seemed that my sister and I were the only ones to realise that something out of the ordinary, something quite disturbing, had happened. The superstitious say that if two events of a certain type occur, then it's only a matter of time before the third one. Well, I'd been more shaken than I should have been by these first two troubling occurrences, and I feared what might be about to come. Which was why I was at the end of the track up to Rosewyke, waiting for my sister, in the twilight of a late June evening. She came trotting up on her pretty grey mare, a smile on her face, her cheeks slightly flushed, and I knew, without asking, that she'd had a good time. The women she'd been visiting were wives of her late husband's business associates, and they had rallied round her after Jeremy's death. They didn't know the whole story. Hardly anyone still living did. And they had taken Celia to their collective bosom out of the kindness of their hearts, wishing, I think, only to help, comfort and support her in her loss. Some of them irritated my sister to distraction. Celia is quite easily irritated. But two or three had found their way under her protective shell and become valued, even beloved friends. "You don't need to act like my bodyguard," my sister greeted me. "I'm perfectly capable of riding home safely and finding my way up the path to the stables, you know." "I know," I agreed. I also knew better than to defend or even explain my actions. But she wasn't really cross. She slipped off the mare's back, handing me the reins as if I was indeed the bodyguard she had just spurned.